And here is the last of the Thimbleberry stories by Cynthia Rylant. And this one is called Mud Puppy's Picnic. When he was not busy tending his little blue cottage on Thimbleberry Lane, Nigel Chipmunk often liked to walk down to Passalong Pond, where his friend Mud Puppy lived. Mud Puppy was a stout gray salamander who was always trying to improve himself. He did leg lifts each morning, ate only the worst tasting food because he thought they were better for him, and even one summer tried to read every book in the Thimbleberry library, so he might become a more interesting salamander. In spite of Mud Puppy's attempts at perfection, Nigel very much enjoyed his company, especially since Mud Puppy was such a good boatman. Nigel loved to boat, but he wasn't very good at it. When once he built his own little rowboat to take out on Passalong Pond, he wound up living on water bugs for 2 days because he could not get the boat to make a straight line back to shore. But this did not dampen Nigel's enthusiasm for boating, so long as someone else was navigating. And in this role, Mud Puppy, being a pond dweller, was superb. Thus, one hot summer day, when Nigel was weary of ground and grass, he decided to visit Mud Puppy in hopes of boating. Naturally, the salamander was delighted to see him. Mud Puppy was in his kitchen concocting a health tonic when Nigel arrived. The tonic must have consisted of a good number of beets, for there were slippery purple puddles everywhere. Mud Puppy offered Nigel a drink of tonic to stiffen the spine and ankles, he said, and being a considerate chipmunk, Nigel accepted, though he was not much interested either in tonics or spines. As expected, the drink was quite nasty, but Nigel drank it as delicately as he could and promised himself next time to bring his own refreshments to Passalong Pond. "Would you care to go boating today?" Nigel asked his friend. "Yes, indeed," answered the salamander. "Swimming alone gets so tiresome. It will be lovely to have a companion on the pond. Fresh air, sun, nothing better for the health." Nigel, who was actually more interested in floating, politely agreed. "And shall I pack us a picnic lunch to take?" asked Mud Puppy. Nigel hesitated. Although he very much disliked Mud Puppy's food, he could think of no way out of the situation. Mud Puppy might be offended if he said no, thank you, so instead Nigel said, "Lovely." "Excellent," said Mud Puppy. "Why don't you run out to the dock then and ready the boat while I put a few things together here? And I see you're no boating hat. You've no boating hat. Take one of mine. I'll be out in a wink." Nigel accepted the hat and Mud Puppy's kindness with gratitude. The salamander's good heart more than made up for the bad taste of his tonics. Nigel went out toward the dock, eagerly approaching Mud Puppy's boat. There she was, a lovely birch boat that Mud Puppy had christened Fern. Nigel set about brushing leaves from Fern's interior, checking the condition of her oars, wiping a bit of mud from her prow. The boat bobbed gently up and down in the water, and for a moment Nigel remembered the thrill of having his own little boat, being his own sailor. Then he remembered the water bugs and was glad he'd given the boat to a beaver and her babies on the other side of the pond. Presently, Mud Puppy arrived, a large green knapsack slung across his back. Nigel dreaded to think what sort of lunch might be inside that pack. He decided to put it out of his mind and enjoy the day. When Mud Puppy at the oars, Nigel untied the boat, giving it a good push from the dock, and they were off. The coolness of the breeze, the green silvery water, the clear blue sky, all these made Nigel wonder why he had not been born a salamander. Mud Puppy always kept a net in the boat for entertainment, and he and Nigel amused themselves by seeing what they could scoop up. First they scooped a crayfish, who gave them a good piece of her mind before returning to the water. Then they scooped a cricket frog, who was quite relieved it was only a salamander, and Chipmunk, who had netted him, and not a little boy, who might take him home to live in a jar. And they scooped more water bugs than either could count. Tired from all the excitement of scooping, they lay back in the boat and let it lead itself as they talked of the goings-on in Pass-Along Pond and on Thimbleberry Lane. Nigel told Mud Puppy about the new brick floor he was putting in his kitchen, and the salamander had some very useful advice for making the bricks stick. They talked easily and quietly as friends do when floating on the water on a beautiful day. Then Mud Puppy announced it was lunchtime. Oh dear, thought Nigel, and though his stomach was feeling very empty, he could not bring himself to look forward to the meal. Still, he managed an enthusiastic response and helped Mud Puppy pull up at a small shaded island in the pond. The two found a nice soft spot free of pine needles, and Mud Puppy brought forth the pack. First, the salamander carefully removed a lovely picnic cloth of blue and white check. Then he brought out sparkling pink crockery plates and real crystal goblets and silver flatware. Nigel was amazed. He'd never seen a picnic so beautifully prepared. He told himself that no matter how nasty the food might be, the tableware would more than make up for the lack of such things as potato salad and deviled eggs. And just as Nigel was thinking this, Mud Puppy took off the cover of the crockery pot and revealed to him a lovely yellow potato salad. Then a lid came off a platter of cold deviled eggs decorated with olives. And to Nigel's further astonishment, Mud Puppy unveiled the crowning touch, a 2-layered chocolate cake. But Mud Puppy, how did you ever manage all this in so short a time? Asked Nigel. The salamander smiled. Since our last meal together, when you turned quite green over the broccoli beet salad, I determined to always have something better to prepare for your next visit, dear friend. Enjoy. The salamander then pulled forth a large brown sandwich bursting with turnip mash and bean curd for himself. He bit into the sandwich with gusto. It was the most magnificent picnic Nigel had ever attended, and to repay Mud Puppy for his extraordinary kindness, at day's end, Nigel himself rode them all the way back home, and in a perfectly straight line. The end. Love you guys.